Hi guys! I just thought I'd make a little video because I haven't been on here very much lately. You might notice, I don't know. But things have been going on and I've been kind of preoccupied with stuff, so I haven't really had a chance to go out and do a lot of videos. I still have some videos left on my phone from the past that I'll be uploading, but new videos I haven't done since my friend Lisa left. Um, So I was in a car accident. I was rear-ended. That was the first thing I got after Lisa left, and so I've been preoccupied with that. It's all taken care of. My car's fixed now, but I had a rental car and I didn't want to be driving it much because it's not mine, and you know how it is. You get used to your own car, and it's hard to get used to a rental car, at least for me. So anyway, I took care of that. I got my car back, so I'm really happy about that. But that took up a lot of time the last couple of weeks, I guess. And by the way, this is Sweet Pea. If you haven't met her, say hello, Sweet Pea. Say hi. Look. Say hi. Look. She doesn't listen real well, guys. Anyway, I figured while I'm on here, I might as well just continue my family story for a little bit. I can't remember what I told you and what I didn't. I think I told you that my birth mother had 23 children. Um, I'm the 22nd of the 23. My twin sister is the 23rd. So we were born at the same time. 22nd and 23rd children in 1958. When we were 3 weeks old, our mother passed away. Unfortunately, it was all over the papers because it was such an unusual thing. A woman has 23 kids and she passes away. She was 42 years old. So at that time, it was all over the papers. I mean, basically, the way it's been, I feel like I haven't missed a beat because since our mother died, and even before that, there were articles on her because of all the kids she had and different things that happened, newspaper articles. But I feel like I haven't missed a beat in my family, even though I wasn't raised in it. So my twin and I were 3 weeks old when our mother passed away. And the papers reported that it was due to complications of childbirth, which wasn't true. So I always want to make that clear because it's all over the papers. I mean, I went on newspapers.com and put in my mother's name, which is Alberta Williams, and I put in 1958. All these articles came up, not just in Chicago where this happened, but from everywhere. Like, even in Canada, I saw articles. But a lot of them stated that she passed away from complications of childbirth, and that's not what happened at all. She was fine after we were born. She was initially fine, but the doctors convinced her to have a tube ligation done so she wouldn't have any more children because 23, that's a lot of kids that your body tolerated. And they suggested that she get that done. She didn't want it done, but eventually was convinced to get it done. And my mother couldn't read or write, so Alonzo, who was her husband, signed off for her to have the surgery done. And after the surgery, she developed. So what happened was I got a hold of her death certificate. My sister brought her death certificate to her doctor and asked her what the cause of death meant because it was a really long word. I can't even pronounce it or spell it or anything. But she asked her doctor what our mother's cause of death was, according to the death certificate. And the doctor said basically it was caused by an overdose of antibiotics. So after my mother had the tube ligation surgery, guess she developed some kind of an infection. And so they treated her with antibiotics, and apparently they overdid it. And basically that's was the cause of her death. It took her the doctor had told my sister that is a very slow, painful way to die, which is really sad. It breaks my heart to think my birth mother went through that, but it is what it is now. But I guess a antibiotic overdose is not good and can kill you, obviously, because it killed my mom. So she died 3 weeks after we were born. My oldest sister, who was 22 at the time, she lived below us in a basement apartment below where my mom lived with her husband Alonzo. And she always was with my mother. Marie was very close to our mother. That's my oldest sister's name, and she was very close to our mother. And wherever our mother went, no matter if she moved out of state, here, there, or everywhere, Marie followed. She was always with her. So Marie, she promised our mother, because my mother begged Marie not to give up the kids, because she knew, that many kids would be a handful for her, and she said, please don't separate them. Our mother had lost 10 of her kids kind of temporarily in Georgia when she lived there because her husband wasn't working and they couldn't support the kids. So, I don't know, the authorities came in and took the kids. Some of them were adopted. She was able to get other ones back. And eventually they headed to Chicago. And that's where I was born, in Chicago. My twin and I, a few of us were born in Chicago. But anyway, when my mother was on her deathbed, she knew she was dying, and she asked our oldest sister, Marie, not to separate the kids. So Marie promised her she wouldn't. So after my mother passed away, Marie kind of took over. The problem is Marie was 22 years old, as I said, and she also had 4 kids of her own, ages 2 months to 4 years old. So she was taking on 18 kids, basically, and she herself was 22. I guess she gave it a go, and it just didn't work. She couldn't handle it anymore. So she decided to let the kids go, but she didn't know how to do it. And so she talked to another sister of ours, a sister that was like a year younger than Marie. And my other sister told her, why don't you leave the kids in the apartment that you lived in and call the police and tell the police there's some kids left there they need to come and get. So Marie thought it over and decided to do that, and that's exactly what she did. So the police came and she actually left. So before she did that, somehow my adoptive parents had connected with Marie, and I don't know how that came about. I never did understand it, but somehow they did. And Marie had given us to my adoptive parents the day before she had left the kids. So the 2 of us were already in our adoptive parents' home. We weren't adopted yet, but we were with our adoptive parents, our future adoptive parents. In the meantime, she had 12 kids in her apartment when she decided to go to a payphone on the corner. This was back in 1959, March of 1959. She decided to go to a payphone, call the police like my other sister suggested, and she told them some kids were there. So there was 12 kids in the apartment, but she had warned the kids that she was going to do this. So I have a brother, Roger. Roger was 14 years old at that time. He just turned 14. And Marie told the kids what she was going to do, and that the kids would be taken care of in foster care. And Roger was upset. He was very close to our mom, and he said, no way, I'm not going to no foster home. So he jumped out the window and ran away, and the police never caught Roger. So there ended up being 11 kids left in Marie's house that the police ended up coming to get. So the police took all the kids, and the next day in the paper, Marie told me, she saw the headline that said that she abandoned the kids. And it really upset her because she didn't feel that she abandoned the kids. She felt like she was getting help for the kids. But the way it was worded, it was like she was this evil monster that just left the kids and took off. So she went down to the police station, and she went to the newspapers. She went to the newspapers first and just reamed them out for their headline, I guess, she said. She went to the police station because she had a change of heart, and now she wanted the kids back. But the police wouldn't give her the kids back right off the bat. She had to go to court. So there was a court custody going on for months. In the end, they wanted Marie to produce a marriage certificate, and the day she was supposed to go to court, she never showed up to show that marriage certificate. So from that day on, which I think was in August of 1959, I was 8 months old, my twin and I think from that day on, all the kids became wards of the court. However, my sister and I, who were with our future adoptive parents, never left their home. The other kids went into foster homes, and some were adopted. But because of all that, we were all separated. And my twin and I eventually were adopted, but not until we were about 4 years old. I think Marie was fighting it. I don't think Marie wanted any of the kids adopted. She wanted to still have control. But somehow my parents were able to arrange this adoption for my twin and I, but it didn't go through until we were like 4.5 years old. Right before we started kindergarten, it became official that we were now their adopted children. They raised us never telling us the story, ever. Never letting us know that we had any other siblings. They told us that our mother died of childbirth and our father died a few months later. Well, really neither of those were true, although, like I said, at the time this all happened, everybody thought my mother did die of childbirth because that's what the papers reported. So that's probably where my adoptive mother got that from too. But she lied about the father part. That's another long story I'll get into later. But basically, my sister and I grew up never knowing we had all these siblings. I had my daughter when I was 21, and when she was born, I started thinking, I really would like to know who my birth family is because I wanted some background for her. People who are naturally born and stay in a family, they have their family history. They have their medical history. They know who they look like. They know where they got traits from. When you're adopted, you don't know any of that stuff. Everything is erased. Our records were sealed. My adoptive parents had our records sealed once we were adopted. So we couldn't even get them opened unless we went to court with a good reason. So when I was, now my daughter was born when I was 21, like I said, and I decided I was going to try and search for my adoptive parents or my birth family. And I actually started to do that when I was around 17. So there's hardly any information on our adoptive birth certificates, but the doctor's name who assisted my mother during the birth of my sister and I was on that certificate. So I looked her up in the yellow pages and I found her. It was a woman. And I actually called her. This is when I was 17 years old and I was working in a nursing home. And I asked her if she remembered anything about a woman giving birth to twins that passed away around 1958. And she said, I don't know. She kept telling me, I don't know. She wouldn't say anything. So I couldn't get any information out of her. And I kind of let it go by the wayside until my daughter was born when I was 21. And then I started thinking, man, I really want to get more information. I'd really like to know what happened. Because you always have this feeling when you're adopted that nobody wanted you. That you're adopted because you were not wanted. And I don't know if I just wanted to confirm that or hope to, find out that wasn't the case. I don't know what I was hoping to do. All I know is I had this yearning to search. And I got busy with my daughter as time went on, and I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do, so I put it off until I was around 34 years old. My daughter was about 13 then. She was 13. And I saw this, I don't know how I found them. I saw an ad or something for a place called Truth Seekers in Adoption. And it was an organization in Chicago, which is where I lived, that met at a hospital there in Park Ridge, I think Lutheran General Hospital, weekly. And they supported adoptees looking for birth parents. So I decided to join that group. They had a fee that I had to pay. It was quite large, actually. I think I gave them like $800. And what they did was they assisted me in my search. And they were able to get information from me that I would never be able to get. So I was assigned a personal assistant, and her name was Susan Miller, and I just loved her. She was wonderful. So Sue, she 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 was my assistant, so she would help me. So the first thing she did, I gave her the information that I did know, like our birth dates, the year we were born, and I told her I thought we were born in Grant Hospital in Chicago because I asked my adoptive mother once, because that's not even on our birth certificate. But I asked my adoptive mother once where we were born, what hospital, and she said, "Oh, you were born in Grant." So that's where I got that information from. But I gave it all to Sue, and Sue said, "Okay, I'll call you back." I think it was about 4 or 5 days later that Sue called me at work. I was working and I had a phone on my desk, and I had given her the number to that phone. So I picked it up and it was Sue, and she said, "Okay, she said, I have your birth name." So whatever sources they use, I don't know. I'm sure it wasn't legal, I guess you might say, but they had sources, so she was able to get our birth names, which turned out to be Brenda and Glenda Williams. So she gave me that information, and she said, "Now, go to Grant Hospital and ask for your birth records using the name Brenda and Glenda Williams. Don't give them your adoptive names at all. Just tell them you're Brenda and Glenda Williams and you want your birth certificates or your birth records." So up to this point, my twin sister didn't even know I had done all this. But once I got our birth names, I contacted her and I told her what I was doing. I said, "Do you want to go along with me and help me out and go on this search?" And she was all in. I couldn't believe it because I was a little nervous. I didn't know how she'd take it. So her and I, from then on, started to do this together. So we went down to Grant Hospital, and believe it or not, this was back in 1993. Actually, in 1992 at this point. Late 1992, like November, December, something like that. We went down to Grant Hospital, and we told them we were Brenda and Glenda Williams and what date we were born and year, and we would like copies of our birth records. Wouldn't you know, it didn't cost a dime, and they said, "Give us about an hour and come back down and we'll have them for you," because they were located in the basement of the hospital, the medical records division. So we walked out, we came back in an hour, and she said, "Okay, here you go." She handed us a stack like this of papers, each of us, and there was no charge. She didn't ask for any IDs. I don't think today that would ever happen. I think with all these privacy rules and everything, it wouldn't be that easy to get those records. But for some reason, everything just went as good as it could get. So from there, we looked inside the records, and we came up with a name, Alonzo Williams, which was my birth mother's husband's name, and my mother, Alberta. So I called Sue back and I gave her the information of names that were in those records, and she looked for stuff, and she said, "I have a death date for Alonzo. It's around this date. I think it was 1976 or 74. It was one of the two." And she said, "Go to the library now and look through newspapers for his obituary, because that will give you information of other family members." So my sister and I, we went to Hild Library in Chicago. I think it was Hild. It was either Hild or Harold Washington, one of the larger libraries. And we each took a microfilm machine, and we took some records with us, and we hooked it up to the machine, and we're both going through them, and all of a sudden, boom, I spotted the name of Alonzo Williams. And it said he had passed away, and his wife was Alberta Williams, which was my mother's name, and that he was the father of 23 children. And it listed every kid's name in the obituary, including mine and my sister's birth names, Brenda and Glenda. It was just crazy. So it was just, I was stunned. My sister was at a machine, and I called her over. I'm like, "You got to come over here. Look what I found." 23 kids, and we were just like our mouths dropped open, and we got all excited, and we're kind of screaming a little bit, and the librarian comes over and says, "You guys got to quiet down. This is a library, you know." Like, okay. So we printed off that obituary, and I went down to the payphone. I didn't even wait till I got home. I went to the payphone that was in the downstairs of the library, and I called Sue, my contact, and I gave her these names, and I said, Sue, you won't believe this, but I think I found it, and this man has 23 kids. We're not the only two. And she was flabbergasted. She said, okay, so it had the name of the funeral home that he was waked at in the obit. So she said, go to the funeral home now and tell the funeral director that you're doing some family research and you would like your father's records. And he'll get you copies of whatever he has from his wake, from his funeral. So we did that, and sure enough, they gave him to us again with no questions, no IDs, no nothing. And from there, we were able to learn that he was. Well, they had him listed. I think, I don't know, somehow in there that was related to being able to find the cemetery where my mother is buried at. So she said to go there. Sue told us to go to the cemetery, which we did. And when we went to the cemetery, she said, ask for her file, ask for your birth mother's file at that cemetery, and see if there's anything in there, because a lot of times there'll be things that families leave behind in the file with information of other family members. So we did that, and when we got the file from the cemetery, sure enough, there was a contact card in there written by another sister who had done a search 17 years earlier. And the card said, if any family members are looking for siblings, please contact, Betty Tackett, and left a phone number. Well, according to the list of kids in my dad's obituary, or Alonzo's obituary, one of my siblings' name was Betty, so we thought it was Betty, our sister Betty, that left that card. But when we called the phone number, it was disconnected. It was obviously 17 years had gone by. So again, I called Sue, my contact, and Sue said, I'll call you right back. And she said, when she called back, she said, well, I wasn't able to get you a phone number, but she said, I do have an address for a Betty Tech in Wheeling, Illinois, that I can give you. And if you're willing to go over to the house, you might get somewhere. I said, give it to me. And this was like, by now it was February 1993. And it was dark. It gets dark early in February. So by the time she got back to me and she gave me the address, it was dark. But my twin sister and I decided to go over to the house anyway. So we drove over to this woman named Betty Tackett. And we knocked on the door, and we thought it was a sister when we knocked on the door. A man comes to the door, and we asked if there was a Betty Tackett there. We would like to speak to her because we believe she might be a sister of ours. And he said, well, my wife's name is Betty Tackett, but she's sleeping. I don't think she has any sisters that are missing. But he goes, come on in, I'll go and get her up. We couldn't believe it. So this man was so sweet. So we stepped inside the vestibule. Well, he's going to get Betty out of bed. And we're looking at family pictures on the wall, nudging each other, going, do they look like us? What do you think? How about this one? How about that? So Betty comes to the door, and we told her what we were doing. We told her we were adopted. We told her the story. I said, we're trying to find our family, and we found a card, and it said to contact you, we believe. And so we think you might be our sister. And she said to us, well, no, I don't have any missing siblings, so that wouldn't be me. So we apologized up and down to her for getting her out of bed and bothering her. And we turned to open the door to leave. And she goes, well, wait a minute. She goes, hold it. My daughter, she tells us her daughter, around 1976, she had a best friend who was looking for her birth family. And she said, I think it might be her. And we said, what's her name? And she said, Karen. And we looked at each other because Karen was a name in the obituary too. And also on the cemetery card, there was a name, Karen Eddy. So we said, Karen is her name? And we go, what's her last name? And she said, Eddy. just like the card at the cemetery. We started jumping up and down. We're like, that's Karen Eddy. That's our sister. Do you know where she is? And she said, yeah. She said, I have her phone number. So she called Karen for us. And Karen was just in total disbelief. So we got on the phone with Karen, and she gave us her address, and we had it right over there. She called her friend, best friend Betty's daughter. Her name is Tammy. So Tammy came over to our sister Karen's house too with a camera, and she took a picture of us. But that's how we found our family. Basically, that's the story. So, I mean, it's a lot more detailed than that. That was like a fast synopsis of how it went. But it was just meant to be. Basically, it was meant to be. So there's a lot more to the story, which I'll continue another time. But I just wanted to fill you in on that much because I haven't been on here much. I figured I'll just upload a video to continue my story that I originally started. That I told you I would give you more information on later. What I'll do is I'll come back another time and continue this story again because there's a whole lot going on in this family. But yeah, can you imagine finding out you're one of 23 kids and most of them were still alive. There was 4 brothers that had died. There was 7 boys and 16 girls. 4 of the boys had died by the time we found our family, our birth family, but everyone else was still alive, although everybody was scattered and everybody wasn't found. People were missing, our siblings were missing. And so we decided to go on a search for them, and that'll be in the next coming up videos after, I don't know, maybe I'll do it sooner. Maybe next week I'll put up another video about that. But I just wanted to tell you guys that, so now that my car is fixed and everything, I'm going to try and get back out. It's been raining a lot here too and stuff. In fact, it's raining kind of now. So I haven't been going out, but I'm going to get back out there again. And I have more videos to upload from the past anyhow. So anyhow, guys, I just wanted to give you that little bit of information about my adoption and finding our birth family. If you have any questions, you can leave them below. I'll be happy to answer them. I love when I can help someone else find their roots because you don't know how it felt. It was just incredible feeling. It still is. It's still unbelievable that my adopted parents knew about all this and just never said a word. And that's another story, but we'll get into that another time. But I'm going to let you go. And you guys have a great day. And that's my story about how we found our birth family. And the birth family has tons of stories within those stories, so I'll be back with those. Take care, everybody. I'll see you soon. And Sweepy says good night. Sweepy, look.